I think it was Al Sharpton who recently said that he didn't want to go back to the days of Herbert Hoover. I mean, this gets redundant after a while, but I completely disagree with Al Sharpton. And here's why. In 1927, Herbert Hoover was the Commerce Secretary under Coolidge. I think, along with Washington, Lincoln, Reagan, Coolidge is our best president. That year, America suffered its most destructive river flood ever, the Great Mississippi Flood. It devastated 27,000 square miles of land with 30 feet of water. That's more than double the water volume of Niagara Falls. 1 million acres of land underwater. Almost 1 million people were driven from their homes. Hoover was put in charge of assisting the relief efforts as the Commerce Secretary. The response went so well that Hoover ended up winning the presidency, known affectionately by Americans all over as the great humanitarian. So how did he handle this? What helped make the disaster response go so well that he was known as the great humanitarian? What candy did he pass out to the American people? Well, none. Hoover's very first step wasn't to hand out government-issued debit cards. He urged the American public to donate their money and donate their own resources and their own skills and whatever they had to help. He said, quote, "I suppose I could have called on the Army to help, but why would I when I only have to call on Main Street?" Amen. The public ended up donating more than double what the federal government ended up giving in aid. Privately owned yachts, commercial barges, other boats were donated to form a rescue fleet. Unpaid volunteers flocked to help. The Rockefeller Foundation provided public health assistance as they set up mini hospitals to battle disease that was spreading in the massive refugee camps. It had also been set up after the flood. Hoover knew that America is great because America is good, but goodness is a muscle. And when it's not used, it will atrophy. Muscles will always wither. I hate to be the only adult in the room, but we're rapidly approaching another era in which we're going to need to flex that muscle, perhaps even much more than we did in 1927 or 29 or 33 or 38 or 41. Right now, farmers are taking such a beating on their crops that they're actually beginning to slaughter their own cattle again because they can't afford the corn that it takes to raise them. No corn, less livestock. What do you think that does to your food price? They skyrocket. Unless you or someone you know has a really reliable rain dance, we're going to be in trouble with food prices again. The rest of the media, it will ignore this reality and they won't tie it in. If they do talk about this, they will talk about it just in this one piece, but they won't talk about it in the overall economy and what it means to you, along with inflation, because they're printing more money, they're talking about it again, and the election, and the rest of the world and the unrest. We do on this network, and I suggest that you prepare for it. Exercise your goodness muscle. For many of us, that muscle looks a little like this right here. I mean, this is, you know, me and my friends, me and this friend and this friend and this friend haven't worked out for a while. Our goodness muscle as a nation, in some ways, couldn't lift 5-pound dumbbells. Not that I haven't, tried that recently and now my arms hurt. But for the past 100 years, most of America has been trained not to use them. You know, in New York City, when I lived in New York, it changes you as a person. You can't even pick up the garbage without a permit. I mean it. You can't do anything without a permit. I'd see something on the ground and look around in disgust, and after about a year of living there, something changed in me because I started saying stupid things that New Yorkers say, like, why hasn't the city done something about this? I stopped dead in my tracks one day, and I went back and I picked up the garbage myself after a year, because I caught myself saying that, and I went, whoa, what am I saying? But it's because I paid so much in taxes that I wondered, really? Can't they do anything about this? In New York City, there is a law that you must be allowed to access a shelter, a bed, if you're homeless. The only rule is you have to be sober. The city spent $856 million for those beds in 2009 alone. It is also against the law to give money to anybody begging for it. You could, in theory, actually get arrested for giving someone your last dollar if somebody says, hey, can you spare a dime? Yeah, you could get busted. Nobody does, but it's on the books. Policies like these, I contend, are meant to weaken our goodness muscle. Instead of stepping up and helping somebody, we say to ourselves, well, we've already spent $850 million. That's almost $1 billion on beds in one city for the homeless. If they wanted to have a bed, they certainly could have one. There are other ways to go. Besides getting in trouble if you want to give money. Instead of looking for ways to pick someone up, we've been trained to put our hands in our pockets and keep on walking by. We've been trained to stay in our own little world. By closing ourselves off from the rest of the world, we've opened ourselves to huge risks where we stop being who we really are. That's why the heartland, and quite honestly, this part of the country, Texas, Oklahoma, is so important. It's practically the only place in America where people still actually help each other in the center of the country. That's the secret. The secret is smaller, not bigger. Individuals, not institutions. Compassion, not Congress. That's what Restoring Love is all about. I know you get this. And this week, for Restoring Love, you are sending a message to the rest of the world. There are 20 countries coming this week. 20. You're sending the message that help is right around the corner. People are already preparing. One example is from here in Texas, Billy Harris and his wife. They're two amazing people. They live in Fort Worth, and they don't have a penny to their name. She suffers from multiple physical ailments. She just had her thyroid removed because it was cancerous. She had some toes removed. Now she has to have her foot removed. She's in the hospital, actually. Their home is in desperate need of some TLC. And we heard about it, and we wanted to help. And this is one of the projects that some of the people are going to go help. And the reason why we like these guys so much is when they found out about this, they really, I mean, honestly, they have nothing. Nothing. But they tithe. They still want to find a way to help others. But they didn't have any money. So instead, they go into their pantry where they have rice and beans, because that's what they eat, and they took it off the shelf, 10% of it, and they gave it to a homeless shelter for people who are worse off than them. When we reached out to repaint their house, our volunteers didn't hesitate to not only power wash all the lead paint off the outside of their house and then repaint it, but this weekend, because we found out who they are, the contractors that are working on this added a new door, a wheelchair accessible ramp. They fixed all the broken windows in the house. They don't know this because they're gone. She's having her foot removed this week. But this is just the beginning. This is just one. We have 35,000 volunteers from all 50 states and 20 countries coming to Texas this week. It's one of the biggest service projects ever done. And it is taking an enormous amount of resources to pull it off. It's hot in Dallas. I mean, it's like surface of the sun hot. All of the water that is needed to keep the workers hydrated. The transportation to move 35,000 people to, can you show the map where all the different places that we are? to move all of these people around. We have been trained by progressive indoctrination to wonder, how are we going to do this? I mean, is there some sort of system? No, there's no sort of system at all. And we've been using our own resources, and you've donated a lot. But we are $1 million shy yet. And there's so much good being done. It's the Great Flood of 1927. And I know the resources will come from where they came in 1927, Main Street. I know that Americans are good, decent people. And if you want to get back to the days of Hoover, where people don't wait for FEMA, and if you believe that the government cannot love, but you can, I'd ask that you donate $10 or $1 or $5 or $100 or $100,000, whatever you have, to support not just the event this week, but specifically the charitable event. And help on the infrastructure alone is incredible. All of the places that we have this week, all of them, we have Freedom Works, Restoring Freedom, which we're going to get to next. But we have 305 service organizations helping us on this day of service.